Hi there, froggers, and welcome to the Toad on the Probe once again. It's terrific to have an opportunity to put science on the slide, shove it under the microscope and go in for a beer. Joining me, of course, the Beast. The Beast is back. And joining us, of course, Toadside, Professor James Goff. James, of course, co-director of the Australian Tsunami Research Centre based at the University of New South Wales. James, great to have you on the Toad Probe. You're sitting here expecting the phone to go any minute. You're jetting off to research another natural disaster. What do you take with you?
I take with me, first of all, you take the gin, and then you've got to have the outfit, which of course is the field gear. But then I would take with me my trowel, tape measure, field notebook, all of those kind of bits and pieces that a real geologist needs when they're out in the field digging holes.
What kind of stuff do you get up to when you get there on the ground? Do you need to measure stuff? I mean, it seems to me that there wouldn't be much left to measure.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's what's left behind after everything's been sort of washed away and destroyed and smashed up that you're measuring. So, for example, how far did the tsunami actually go inland? Where does, what's the sediment look like? How thick is it? Did building X here get carried 200 metres inland and smashed up, or did it go 100 metres and all that kind of thing?
And is this to understand what? The force of the tsunami, how it got to where it is, or can you work on a preventative process for the future?
I think the answer to that is yes to all of those things, but ultimately we're trying to find out about how it came inland, what it did to buildings, what it did to vegetation, what it did to the landscape that was there and what's beforehand and what's there now. And then that does help us sort of further on down the line inform people and say, look, this is how you should maybe rebuild, or this is where you should not build, and so on.
How soon after a tsunami do you prefer to be on the ground?
It'd be nice to be on the ground the minute after it's finished, to be honest, simply because the further away you get from the time it actually happened, the more things get cleaned up, which is of course obvious, and it's appropriate, but the more things we then start to not see because people have cleared them up.
So if, since you're at UNSW, you heard one was coming for Sydney, would you rush out to the Bronte escarpment, hang out there, wait for it to come in, then get in there with your tape measure?
I probably would, yeah, I probably would, yeah.
And now, when you go to a place like, as recently you went to Japan, do you see people who you've seen at these sites before and obviously natter away about how this might compare with, say, the one in the Indian Ocean, several years ago?
Yeah, there is you might almost call it a club, I suppose, club. We wander around and we see each other again. Almost the only times we ever see each other are when we go on these sort of immediate tsunami trips, and we catch up on what we saw the time before and what how this compares and that type of thing. It's really important.
It's like one big gravy train for you tsunami scientists, isn't it? It's like you're in the pocket of big tsunami.
Ah, big tsunami. Yeah, the problem with that though is I don't think any of us really, after a few times, want to go to these things. It's not really that pleasant.
Now, in the recent one in Japan, I'm right in thinking that the Japanese, having experienced some of tsunamis before, put up markers suggesting it was wrong to build on the seaside of this particular point in the landscape, and yet of course they did, to their very sad detriment.
Well, you get these little, they had a lot of markers there saying, back in, 800 years ago, here's how high the wave was and here's where it got to and that type of thing. But, the demand, people want to go and live at the coast. They want to grow things on the flat land because it's difficult to grow things on the hills and all that kind of stuff. So that quietly gets forgotten about to a certain extent.
Are you worried that your research will be forgotten and overlooked like all other tsunami researchers appears to have been forgotten and overlooked in the future?
Oh, I think now we're getting into a time where communication is a lot more efficient and effective, and people are a lot more aware and concerned about the hazards because we're starting to live in areas that are a lot more dangerous for us, and that therefore sort of raises people's awareness. So, there are some bits of my work I'd like to forget.
So instead of stones, you'd have a tweet, perhaps. Yeah. Tweets are really easy to overlook, though. That's
well, it could, and if the phone system's not working, then it could be difficult to get your tweet. But
I just imagine 1,000 years ago a Japanese farmer walking past one of those stones, HD, and going, "Oh, that's political correctness gone mad."
It would be, exactly. I bet you they had the same arguments, exactly the same arguments. Round the village square, they were sort of scientists. What do they know? They know nothing. They just give me the shits all the time, preventing us from going to do what we want to do.
These stones, I don't believe in those stones.
Now, the big question is, will LA be next?
Well, one can but hope.
On that positive note, can you thank James Goff for coming in to the Probing Toad?
Thanks, James Goff.